This is the Wabash Carnegie Public Library Oral History Program, interviewing Elmer L. Rice, October 30th, 1974, at the Honeywell corporate offices, Wabash, Indiana. Now, Elmer, the first question I'm going to ask you is tell me about your background and your parents and grandparents and where you were born and when and so forth.
I'll start with myself. I was born on East Hill Street, October 30th, 1909. My parents' names were Louis Edward Rice and Estella Berthina Bidwell Rice. My grandparents don't know too much about my mother's folks. My father's parents were Frederick and Sarah Rice. They were of German extraction. I think some of the relatives came over in 1813, if I recall the date right, that was in a Bible. They were pretty religious people, as most generally you found the German people of that era. I can recall in my younger days that they'd done a lot of talking in German when they didn't want little ears to hear. And I never took one myself to try to learn any of it. My father was taught German. He spoke quite a bit of it. And they lived in the area of what they call the German settlement, which is east of Urbana on the county line. And they were farmers. My grandfather done a lot of logging, and my grandmother worked the fields just like a man. Her family, their name was Henry. Last name was Henry. I can't recall any of the older people's first names. She had a pretty decent sized family of sisters and brothers. They, I don't know, they were all, from what I could gather, were all hard workers. All the girls out in the fields helping just like the men. It would have been something to observe, you know.
Yeah. Well, did you have brothers and sisters in your immediate family?
Yes, I had two sisters that were younger than I. I was the oldest of the family. My older sister, 2 years younger than I, her name was Pauline. She passed away in 1935, I believe it was, at the age of about 23. She had lobar pneumonia, sick a week, and passed away. Left a family of two girls. And my younger sister, Marie, 4 years younger than I, she never had any children. She's married, and she didn't have any children. She's still living, and we get together quite often, though she does live in Minneapolis at this time. And my nieces, the two nieces, one lives in Huntington, and the other lives in Fort Wayne, in the Waynedale area. We try to get together quite often.
Tell me about your father and mother and living at home, and what part of Hill Street, and your early education, and what your dad did for a living, and that type of information.
Well, to start with, I don't know too much, of course, about our residence on Hill Street, except that I know it's in the Hannah Park area of Hill Street, and they moved from there before I was old enough to remember anything. I believe from there they moved to Urbana. And my father at that time was in business in Urbana with a cousin of his. They ran a butcher shop. You get up in the morning 4 o'clock in the morning, go out and butcher beef and bring it in and sell it through the butcher shop. Mother was a housewife and didn't work out at all. I don't recall too much of living in Urbana at that time. Then I believe they moved from there down south of Rich Valley on the prairie. My father farmed, worked as a farmhand. I can remember a little bit of where we lived there and some of the things, you know, that like bad storm or something like this, I could remember, but not too awful much. Then we moved to Speicherville, and my father was still a farmhand. That's where I started my first year of school, in a little old one-room schoolhouse that stood there on the corner. Father, we moved to Wabash at the end of my first year of school. I started my second year at Century School, and I went from Century School to the old, what they call the old junior high. It's an administration building now, I guess. One term, and parents were both working. My father bought a home up on Manchester Avenue, and he was trying to make ends meet, and mother started working too, and we were a family of no great means, but we had a nice family. I can remember back, and everybody was a family. And I recall my father was very strict, and when he told me that if I got a whipping in school, I'd get one when I got home, I could expect it.
Yeah.
He was that type of person. Mother was an easygoing lady, and you had to respect her because of that. She never was harsh or anything like this. And I respect my father too because of the education that he gave me. But we
Did you continue school?
no, I quit school after my freshman year.
What'd you do?
I went to work at where the 4-meter box is now, in the shipping room. In fact, I went to work there during my summer vacation. And when time to go to school again, I got a work permit and a chance. I talked to my father before I done it. I asked his permission, and he told me that it would be okay if O.J. Neighbors was a school superintendent, if he would agree. And I had to go talk to him myself. And I did. He tried to talk me out of it, but I guess I was too young, and I thought I knew what was best, but I sure would think different now. And would suggest if anybody's trying to get an education, get it, because it helps.
Yeah. Well, how old would you have been then when you went to the work? Well,
I should have went to school in September and went through October the 30th to my birthday to be 16 before I could really have quit school. This is the reason why I had to go to O.J. Neighbors and talk to him and find out whether I could, instead of starting and then quitting.
What company was in that building at that time?
At that time, it was what they call the Asbestos Manufacturing Company, and R.J. Evans lived in Wabash, and he was the owner, operator of the plant. I can't tell you exactly how many people was employed, but quite a number of people were employed there.
Tell me about the factory. What did they make, and what did you do, and so forth? Because there's been very little written about the asbestos factory.
As much as I can remember, this asbestos, I might go back to this, to start with, the asbestos is a rock sort of thing. It looks like a rock, and you can peel it just like you would a fiber, and well, take a piece of celery and you get strings. Well, this is the way that would be, only it'd be finer. It could be cut right down to fine and carded, you know. Well, this asbestos and cotton were carded and formed into a yarn, then wire, small wire added to that, made into a yarn, and this yarn then was put on spinning machines where they spin them into spools that were put into a loom, and this was woven into a cloth. In turn, the cloth was impregnated with the compounds of rubber, sulfur, and so forth, and then cured in presses to make brake lining. Right in the area of the automobiles, starting with brakes and so forth. I wish I knew enough about the whole thing to give you a little more idea of what this operation was like. It was a large operation, carding this cotton and getting this asbestos prepared so that they could mix the two and spin and make a yarn out of it. I worked in the shipping room when I went there, and that was boxing up. I do recall something else. They made theater curtains, fireproof theater curtains, and they was all sizes. As you can imagine, some theaters had large stages and large curtains, and this cloth was woven and then sewed together and made into big theater curtains. They also made some kind of a, I don't recall now what they called it, but it was used in the manufacturing of coal and the like a conveyor belt, but it was used some way in the manufacture of coal. I don't know just how, because I didn't get into that too much. Offhand, I can't think of anything else right now.
How long did you stay there?
I believe I worked just a little over a year. Things got a little bit slack, and from there I went to the Cardinal Cabinet Company. This storage plant is storage company is in there in that place. I worked in the finishing room, not in actual finishing like staining and all this. We've done a lot of assembly work of phonograph cabinets and so forth. I believe I only worked about 6 months there, and I was working part-time, just helping some, and I've tried to recall his name for several years now. Cecil Browneller was driving a truck for him, and he had about 7 Chevrolet trucks that he was using, and he was delivering groceries all over Wabash. They was picked up from 7 or 8 different stores. People had a telephone, they'd call in this order to the store, and they'd get it all ready, put it in a metal basket, and it would be hauled around over the area to different people. I can't think of his name. I have tried to think of it for years, but I can't recall it. And I was just riding along helping him extra, because they did have an awful workload, especially on Saturdays. You can imagine 7 trucks delivering groceries all over town, and those guys making 4 and 5 trips in a certain area. They had their routes. and you just run from the truck to the house, get rid of the grocery back and go. It was work, and it was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. It was outside. You met people, and I really enjoyed it. So it come time for Cecil to take his vacation. They asked me to stick along here and take his route because I knew it. Well, in the meantime, my parents moved. The asbestos plant moved from Wabash to Huntington. And my parents moved, and I had 1 week to go yet. So they said, well, I stayed with my mother's half-brother this week till they got up and moved and settled, and I got through with my job, and then I went back up there to Huntington with them to live. I was out of work about a week, and I went to work at the same plant in Huntington. It was more brake lining, clutch facing, and so forth then. And I worked there 10 years.
What name did it go under in Huntington then?
Asbestos Manufacturing Company.
Yeah. It was the same management and everything that had been here in Wabash?
Same management.
I wonder why they ever moved out of Wabash.
That I don't have the answer for. My father was a foreman here in Wabash, and when they moved, he was moved along, and I guess they had a few other people that were permitted to move or was asked to move if they wanted to. But mother worked the same plant. She was a weaver, what they called a weaver. She operated a loom. And I know at one time my father had about 70 women working under him. He had charge of the twisters, the bobbers they called them, and looms. I think he had somewhere around 15 to 18 looms, and every one of them had a weaver working on it all the time. And we had he had 5 or 6 twisters, which were long machines that had maybe 100 to 125 spindles to weave this or to twist this cotton and yarn and wire together.
What job did you stay on then? You stayed for 10 years. Did you stay right in shipping?
No, I went to work up there at Huntington in the press department, a press operator. Most all my time was spent as a press operator, although I had about 3 years that I was more or less shifted around several different departments where I was needed the most. This entailed a lot of different operations, but the last 7 years was spent on presses and molding brake lining for 1927, 28, and 29 Chevys. That was our biggest deal, the Chevrolets at that time, for the passenger cars, and then we had it for the trucks. I think we must have had about all our business from the amount of pieces of brake lining that we manufactured. It was quite an operation. Of course, we had other different size brake lining and also clutch facings, the disc type clutch facing that was used on different types of engines and so forth. And I had brake blocks, they called them. They were manufactured out of this woven and rubber impregnated items that were used on large cranes for their brakes to control their booms and so forth. It was this was quite interesting work. It was hot work. I think General Tire has something similar to what we went through up there at Huntington. I know about 5 years of those 7 were spent on operating a hydraulic steam press that had 6 platinums, they call them. And that press was operated up and down by steam pressure. And of course you had your heat from the steam too at the same time. We ran 72, what they call 72 molds in and 72 out, 2 men operating presses, and there was 9 cavities to each mold. And each cavity held a brake lining, of course. This was quite a number of pieces to be running through a press, and they were 20-minute heats. So you eat your dinner on the run. But the temperatures in between those presses sometimes in the summertime got up as high as 140 degrees. You worked with a pair of bib overalls and shoes and socks, and used 2 pair of high cuffed gloves at that time so you could handle the hot molds and so forth.
What kind of money were you making?
Great. At that time, 45 cents an hour.
Yeah. This was in the late 20s?
This was from 27 to 37.
Yeah.
And
well, you worked right through the Depression then.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
That, very fortunate. At least I feel I was very fortunate. I didn't have to go to WPA or anything of this sort. My parents, my sister was to home. The younger sister was home. The older sister was married and had 2 children. They were babies. Her husband worked at the plant with us. Dad was a foreman up there, of course. He was working just part-time, and I got down to, I'd get a half a day to a day and a half a week. This gave me just a little bit of something. And of course my wife at the time, she was working there, and she got maybe a half a day a week. And then it was some weeks that she didn't get any work. My parents lived in a big double house. They had a lot of room on their side of the house. And what we done, all of us moved together. And we got by this way because we didn't have utility bills to pay, we didn't have rent to pay, and everything pooled together. It come out pretty good. A lot better than a lot of people had it, I know. And I done a lot of fishing. My wife's parents lived out by Markle along the river. They done a lot of fishing, and there was another family, a man and his wife, that were good friends of ours, and he had a large tent. Well, my wife and I, we had no children. This couple didn't have any children yet, and we took and camped out along the river, set turtle traps, and fished when we wasn't working at the plant. My mother-in-law had some chickens, and they had a cow, and we would spend a little money by eating some eggs and having good milk and good old country butter. Buy some beans, and we'd have turtle, and we had fish. Actually, what you'd have to buy was if you bought some butter and some milk and bread, and buy some beans. And we made our own tables out there at the camp, and it was on a hillside. We dug back in there and made us a place to keep our butter and milk, the whole bit. It was kind of a lark, and it was a cheap way of doing it too, and it helped us considerable, and we enjoyed it.
Tell me about meeting your wife and her background and so forth.
Well, I met my wife at the plant where we both worked at the time, and she started working. She didn't graduate. She got to her senior year, and I don't know what happened, but she didn't graduate, and she started working there at the plant. She had a sister that worked there, and it's one reason why she started. It was kind of one of those deals where a family was, if somebody in the family worked there, and there was somebody that they needed help, and they had somebody that they could use, they was glad to get them because they knew the background of the family, and I think this is a good thing. But she started working there, and I just happened to see her and talk to her a couple of times, and we started dating. And I had dated two other girls from the time I was up there until I met my wife. I never done a lot of running around. The girls I met seemed to think that they wanted to go steady, so we went steady.
Yeah. You told me everything but her name, her maiden name.
Day. Dorothy.
Dorothy Day.
Dorothy Day.
Oh.
She was from around Warren and Huntington, and she had a family of 5 sisters and 2 brothers. A large family and a very close-knit family, and I never enjoyed myself so much as when the family got together. We got together at least once a week at either place. Didn't make a difference where it was at. Carry in stuff to eat. We'd have our big family dinners and really enjoy ourselves. I think our families today are losing something by
sure
not having this.
Well, how did your termination at Asbestos come about? What happened?
Well, as I was telling about the job I had on the presses where the heat was terrific and all this, I got down to the point where I weighed 128 pounds, and I had a kind of a sad-looking color to me. With all the compounds that were put into this cloth, that was heated up then and molded, you worked right over that, and all those fumes and stuff come up into your face, and you was inhaling it and so forth. I think it had something to do with it. My father was born and raised out around the German settlement there, east of Urbana, about 6.5 miles, and he worked when he was a kid for the farmers around there after he quit school. And this one farm was up for sale, and he happened to know about it. And he checked on it. It was only 80 acres, a nice large house on it. And he wanted to get away from town and kind of prepare himself, when he'd be getting out of the plant. And so he checked on it, and he finally come to me one day after he'd been out checking on it. He come back to the plant and come over and talked to me, and he said, asked me if I'd like to get out of the place. And I didn't know what he had in mind, but I said I sure would. So he told me what he had in mind, and he said this is only an 80-acre farm, and it's got a large house, and of course we had a daughter by that time, and said we can all live in the house because it's that big. And he said if the deal goes through and I get it, why, and if you want to, you can go out there and we'll all live out there, and you can do the farm, and I'll keep on working in the plant until the time comes when I can see my way clear to get away from it. So that's what we done, and I was there 4 years, or thereabouts. When I went to work at Honeywell, I weighed 154 pounds. So farm life is good too. I left the farm, and this was during the beginning of World War II, and things got where 80 acres wasn't enough for 2 families, you know, with the young daughter and all. So I decided that I would go to work someplace and help make things meet. I worked a little bit at the Speicherville Manufacturing Company on nights, but that was just catch a can, and it wasn't steady or anything. And I finally decided I'd try the factories here in Wabash, and so I tried General Tire first. I knew Al Teich. Dad knew him real well. His parents lived right across from us at one time there in Huntington, and I never did get in to see Al. They were busy, and he was busy as could be. Always 10 or 12 people around to be interviewed. I went in one morning to try to get in and be interviewed, and there was somebody else that was there, and he was leaving, and he said, "Why don't you go down to Honeywell? I think they're hiring down there. Put your application in." I said, "Okay, I will." So I decided, well, I've waited here long enough, I guess I'll go down. So I went down, I put my application in at Honeywell, and the next day, I believe it was, I was interviewed for a job, and I got on. I went on third trick in the machine shop, and I thought this would probably be a short-time job, you know, war be over with, a couple of years or a year, and then I'd be out looking for another job. But I think I'd be 33 years. I worked in the machine shop on third trick on burr bench to start with. Everybody starts on the burr bench. And then I went into the milling machines, finally over into the hand screw machines, and Stuart Martin was third trick foreman. He had, I believe that John Parrott was his assistant. But John went into the Navy, and I got deferred from, through the company and through my family status 2 or 3 times, of course. And when John went in the Navy, I went on as Stu's right-hand man, I guess you'd call him. Took up machine setup and troubleshooter, and I worked at that for quite some time. I don't know exactly how long, and then we took the third trick off finally. I went over on the second trick, worked that for a short time, and then went over on days. And, Russell Tyner was tool crib attendant, tool crib clerk, and he was leaving. The Bus Martin tool room foreman was in charge of tool crib, and he couldn't find anybody to take that job. And Russ was leaving in 2 weeks, so he asked me if I'd take it, and I refused him. He wouldn't hold still. He kept asking me, and I think he asked me about 4 or 5 different times, and finally he asked me and told me that, well, if I didn't like it, he said, "You can take it for a short time. If you don't like it, go back out in the shop. I'll get somebody in the meantime." Well, I think it was supposed to be for 6 months. That'd give him plenty of time to hunt somebody up and get them prepared for the job. That's 6 months stretched into 15 years in a tool crib. I don't regret that I stayed there. It was quite an education. In fact, of the matter, I don't believe I could have got a better education along that line of work than what I got there. I seen the salesman. I had charge of ordering all the tooling, keeping an inventory on this stuff, and we had all the setups for drill presses and milling machines and so forth. And when they moved out of the downtown plant out to the monastery plant here, moved tool crib out. I don't recall the exact year, but it was in existence about a year out here, and then they changed their program, and they done away with the tool crib, moved the machine shop completely out, you might say. We had all I had was our tooling, and then I went into inspection, in-process inspection. And I was in that till a year ago, this last August, and to engage crib job opened up, and I bid on it and got it. It's a wonderful job too. It's an education itself.
When you went into the tool shop, you had no formal training really in tooling or machine work, and how did you get along?
I had no training as far as a machine shop is concerned. My training before that was nil, because the jobs I had before didn't involve any machinery to speak of. And I don't know what, I just pick it up and observing, and if somebody is around that tells me that something's got to be done, and they got an idea of how they want it done, then I try to do it. And this is, I think, the way I picked all that up.
What kind of money did you make when you started?
I think, if I recall right, when I started for Honeywell, it was 45 cents an hour.
Do you remember the men that were in the tool shop in those days when you started?
Yes.
Ones that you worked with?
Sam Wagner was one. He was a burr bench operator. Sam was a cripple. He didn't have he had lost one of his legs, and he was a burr bench man, and a good one. And Mel Snowberger was he was on another trick, but I did finally, after they took the other tricks off, work with Mel. Oh, let's see. I've got 101 different people that I've made friends with and worked with me. There was Augie Rumpf and Fred Ellis. I said John Parrott before he went into service. Wayne Adams, Jess Devers, and
Was Alonzo Mollendor with
Lonnie Mellendor, and
well, most of these people I've interviewed. Anything
Yes.
unusual happened in those days that you can recall?
oh, unusual. The only thing I could say about it, whether it would be unusual or not, but it seemed as though the whole thing was just like one big happy family. I don't know. I really don't know how to say it, but you had help if you wanted it. And by the same token, if you could help somebody, you felt like it was something to do.
Were you conscious of who was running the place in those days?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very
Who was running the factory in those days?
We had Howard Worth, Howard Mosworth, Doc Leland, Jim Ebbinghaus, R.J. McDaniel. There was a few others that left while my first couple of years there. And of course, when I was on third trick, and I didn't see too many of the main people. Marvel Walrod, Mr. Honeywell himself. You think back, it's just a little bit hard to think of all the people because, like I say, there were so many good people that you can't think of all the names.
Yeah. Was Mr. Honeywell active in the business when you started, and how long?
I think he was very much so because I seen him practically every day when I was working days. You'd see him in the plant, and a lot of times he would be down into the plant, but I think the man was busy, that it kept him busy in his office considerable. And he was a very nice man to know. I recall one incident while I was in the tool crib, and after we'd moved to the west end of the building there, they remodeled that and moved down in there, and they moved the tool crib down there, larger area and so forth. Of course, our MNREG organization at that time was they had the concessions of the candy machines and pop machines, and somebody in the organization of the MNREGs had to take care of them, and they I would say they roped me into it, but I was delegated to take care of the pop machines and the candy machines, fill them and get the money and bank it, or give it to the treasurer and so forth. I recall one morning along about 8 or 8:30, somewhere in the neighborhood at the time, that I had some trouble with one of the Coke machines. Somebody called me about it, and it wasn't too far, so I went up and opened the machine. I just got the thing taken care of and was starting to walk away, and Mr. Honeywell came in. He had parked his car out there along the building, and he came in and he spoke to me and wanted to know whether I had change for a quarter. And I said, no, I don't have. I can get it for you. He said, no. He said, do you want a Coke? I said, Mr. Honeywell, I don't believe I do. It's just a little bit early. And, well, he said, I want to change for a parking meter. So I got him change out of the machine. I just got some change for him. It struck me unusual that he wanted to buy me a Coke so he could get change for that parking meter.
Let's make this the end of part one. Well, we were talking about Elmer. We were talking about Mr. Honeywell, and I turned the tape. Now, you remember other little personal stories about him?
Not as I recall right now. Of course, I always envied that automobile he drove, and
Which one?
I believe it was the Olds, the gray Olds that he drove. It looked like it'd be a wonderful car to own.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, I often thought maybe I'd like to have it if he ever sold it,
Mm-hmm.
But that's beside the point. I knew most of it, that wouldn't be possible. but it was a nice car.
He gave it away, you know.
Is that right?
Yeah. He gave it away with the stipulation that the car was never to be sold.
Well, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
This is new.
Yeah.
I was under the impression, I don't know whether I'm right or whether I heard this right, but I thought possibly that Marvin, I can't think of his last name now, his chauffeur.
Pettiford.
Was Pettiford.
Yeah.
Got the car, but I'm not real sure about that.
But up until a few years ago, the car was around. Were you conscious of Mr. Honeywell being active in the business and knowing what was going on?
Well, in this respect only, that I did see a lot of him at the plant, so I had to assume that he was very active,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought at all times that he was very active, along with the fact that the community building was going up too, and when he was, you might say, pretty active in the plant, in Honeywell, the organization itself. He seemed to be around quite a bit then, and more so in the plant, you know, proper. Of course, he had that thing at heart,
Mm-hmm.
and he had Wabash at heart when he built this, and he wanted something. I'm sure he wanted something that the people of the community could be proud of, and this is why he was so wrapped up in it. Not that he wasn't wrapped up in everything that he'd done. I believe he was the type of man that was that way.
Mm-hmm.
My own thinking on it, what little I knew and seen of him, this is the impression that he gave me, that anything that he'd done had to be done just so, because, not because he thought it ought to be for his own sake, it was for others. I heard a few stories about men that he'd had working in the Honeywell Gardens and working different places. Man's wife sick or something like that. The man wasn't very good, we'll say. He was rather poor, to the extent he didn't have a lot of money to spend on things, and the man's wife gets sick. Somehow or other, Mr. Honeywell provided something for him.
Yeah.
I've heard different stories, and I can't vouch for them, but then I've heard these stories, and I myself take them to be facts.
Did you work on the Honeywell building or country club at all, part-time, like many of the others did?
Not myself. Indirectly, I might have done a few things by being in the tool crib. When he was having things made, like they had some tables, and the table legs were made by the plant in order to be just exactly the way he wanted them. One light. I remember Lewis Kroll working on that, and the changes that Mr. Honeywell would have Lewis make in them to accomplish what he wanted, and the way he wanted it. And I indirectly probably got involved in it with my conversations with Louis Kroll when he'd come to the tool crib and maybe want some kind of a tool that would do something for him. I'd try to help him out.
Yeah. Let's talk about unions now. When you joined, let's call anything before the International, you refer to it as the company union or captive union or whatever name that they use has been set.
Independent.
All right, let's call it the independent union.
Independent union.
All right, and then let's call the other the international. Would that be correct
Right.
terminology?
Right.
Now, did you join the independent union when you joined the factory?
The independent union was not in existence until a few years after I went to work, and I did go to the organizational meetings and participated in it, and also stayed with it. I became secretary treasurer, and offhand I can't tell you how many years I was secretary treasurer of it. And I know Shorty Circle was president, and Cyril Cole was president, and I think there was one other president, but right offhand I don't call his name. I personally liked our independent union. I think we done a lot of good for the people. We, of course, I think the independent union isn't given enough credit when they are in existence, and this, I think, is one reason why the international unions have succeeded so well. I'm not against unions. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. The union is all right, but I am against the excessive dues, and a lot of it going out of our county and our state. I don't like it.
Were you on the negotiating committee?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was your relation with management then?
The relation with management was real good. By that I don't mean that we went up and bowed. By no means did we bow to the company. But as I stated before, when I said that it was like one big happy family, I also included the people that were in management. They were like the one happy family.
Yeah.
And I recall Molesworth, he could pound a table when we was in negotiations and tell us that what was what, but he had his job to do, same as we had a job to do. And all this is to come to some kind of an agreement. And it's like anything else. You gotta give. Somebody's gotta give, and you gotta give a little here and take a little there, and it works both ways.
Yeah. How do you think that the international came in then? What's your own personal opinion of how it came in?
The
I should say.
international, I think probably probably cause in all instances, all cases, not just Honeywell, but a lot of your unions that had independent union and the international got in is through the efforts of a few people that felt as though they might have been discriminated against, if that's what you want to call it, or they felt like they weren't getting what they had due them, and maybe they thought that the independent union wasn't working for them, and all it takes is 51% of the employees to get a vote to see who wants to represent them, and a lot of good hard work on the part of those people to sell their bill of goods, and they got them in. They voted in. I still affirm that I'm not against the union,
No.
but I'm against the way some unions are run.
Yeah. Did you notice a different attitude then from management or not? After the international?
Not too much. In fact, I more or less, well, how I explained it, as far as our independent union being voted out and the independent union in, I got to the point where I didn't care what happened as long as I was working.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to work my 8 hours and get paid my 8 hours, and that's all I cared about. I didn't care whether I went into any extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say anything about it. In fact, I don't believe I will.
Yeah. Did when we moved out to the new building, did you like that move, or did you a little resistive to it?
No, I wasn't didn't resist the move in my own mind at all. I thought it was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'd seen where we were, as far as the company was concerned, it was kind of a detriment. I thought in my own mind that it was because of the fact that we had operation here, we had operation at the main plant, we had things that was going on that we had to be doing a shuffling of parts and stuff back and forth, which is, it's costly,
Mm-hmm.
time consuming,
Mm-hmm.
and all this. So I thought it was a good move myself.
Yeah.
But it was.
When Mosworth left and Bob Ensler, you remember when Bob came in
Yes.
with a group from Freeport, were you concerned about the outlook for Honeywell or anything at that time?
To a certain extent, yes.
Which way?
Well, I wondered what was going to happen. When you get a change like that, and you kind of wonder, is this move towards getting things consolidated here and out of the way and move someplace else?
Mm-hmm.
You get that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but then I felt differently after a while. Well, there's a reason. They have a reason for it. So as long as I've got a job, I shouldn't worry too much about it.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever think they'd move the factory out altogether? Did that ever cross your mind?
Not well. Yeah, in one sense of the word, yes. When you have a lot of labor trouble, labor problems, when the International was trying to get in, and they did get in and try to get their organization going and all, and you got a transition period there where things look kind of bad. And you might get the opinion that well, something could happen if labor troubles got bad enough. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that they're going to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guarantee that they're going to move out the next day either.
Yeah.
As far as that goes.
That's true. Did you belong to Mini Rigs at all?
Yes.
And were
Yes.
you active in that group?
I belonged to them as soon as I could join the men rigs. I was very active. I liked it real well. I think the men rigs do a wonderful job as far as their helping. But the last 4 years, I would say, I haven't been active.
Mm-hmm.
I belong, but I just haven't been active because I just don't have the time working 8 hours here and then work every other night down at the sheriff's department, of course, as turnkey.
Mm-hmm.
So I've dropped my activities as far as men rig's concerned. I still belong to it, and I'll get a life membership card, I assume everybody else had.
Yeah. What activities did you take part in, the Mini Rigs?
Well, I didn't miss any meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back about the second year I was in, I was secretary of the men rigs. And I've always worked on committees whenever they wanted some committees and they asked. I never refused because that's what it takes to make an organization.
Did you participate in any of the activities of the athletics or Anything?
Not in the men rigs, except for bowling.
Uh-huh.
It's in bowling, had a bowling team, and I'd done a lot of bowling. But basketball and some of the other activities, no, I got a little too much age on it.
Yeah. Tell me about your family now, your children, and so forth. And
I have one daughter and one son. The daughter, we were married 5 years before the daughter was born in 1935. And this when, just shortly after she was born, well, I'm 37, we moved to farm. She went to school at Urbana until 1942, when we moved from there over to my grandmother's place over by Lincolnville. My grandmother and grandfather were sickly, and then my grandfather passed away, of course, before we moved from the farm even. And we went over there. She went to Lincolnville School. In 1941, January 23rd, 10 days after I went to work at Honeywell, the son was born. And there's 5 years difference in their age. Daughter has been graduated out of high school at Urbana. She's been living mostly out on a farm. They started farming, and then they got out of farming, and son-in-law came into Honeywell. He worked for Honeywell's in the plant here as a grinder in the fabricating area. He quit, I don't remember now what year it was. He quit and went to Urbana to the Schrock Fertilizer, which is now Standard, or our American Oil Company owns. And the son graduated in 1959 from Urbana. He had 2 years at Manchester College, and then he decided that he was going to get married after 2 years of college. And he got married, and he worked at controls at Manchester a while, and then to Andrews at what is Essex Wire now. And we were both active starting in '61 in CB radio. We both got CB radios and got active in that. The daughter and her man finally got into it after we were into it a while. But we used our radios. We went to Manchester during the Halloween season and basketball season. We helped Manchester Police Department. Our now sheriff was chief of police up there. And this was about 3 years of it that we had, that we worked up there with them.
just as volunteers?
Just as volunteers and as eyes. We used our CB radios and helped them in leaf fires and what have you. Working traffic at the ball games, parking the cars and this and that, and anywhere that we were needed to help out. And the sheriff liked it. He was chief of police then. He liked our work. He was elected sheriff, and he asked me, because I was the older of the group, and there was about either 5 or 6 of those boys all together. He asked if we would be willing to work as reserves for him in the sheriff's department if he was elected. And I told him that I didn't know whether everybody would or not, but I said, I will for one. I think probably that the others will too. So this is what happened. this is how we got into the sheriff's department. The boy worked up there at Andrews at Essex Wire, and he was in quality foreman. Finally was up to assistant purchasing agent. They built a new plant up on 30 east of Columbia City, and he didn't want to move. He lives in Wabash, and he didn't want to move his family to up around that area. He wants to stay in Wabash, and he couldn't see driving back and forth. He was interested in the sheriff's department, and so he quit up at Andrews and took a full-time deputy job. And he is a sergeant at the sheriff's department at this time. I'm working have been since 1969 as a turnkey and reserve deputy. Every other night I work down at the sheriff's office. And it's enjoyable work. It's something new, and it gets it's changeable.
Yeah. Now that tomorrow is your last day of work, are you going to regret leaving Honeywell?
Am I going to regret? This is something that you look forward to in your earlier years. You keep thinking, well, I can't really wait until I can retire. I would say I had the idea in my mind that I wouldn't mind retiring until 2 or 3 months ago. I didn't think it would bother me any, but it does. The nearer it got, the more it bothered me. I'm going to miss Honeywell, sure. I think mostly I'll miss the people. Now, I was looking at the seniority list just today, and I happened to notice of all the names, and I couldn't realize that there was that many people, and that they had been associated with me for so long a period. People that started in 1950, which will make them 25 years this next year. It's either 12 or 14, which is quite a group. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good group. And I looked at the next group in 1951, and there's 10 or 12 there. And about 4 or 5 years there, there's that approximately that many each year. So that's quite a number of people in a short period of years here that you've been associated with. And you're going to miss them.
Have you made plans for your retirement? Had you been thinking about this?
I have thought about it. I've been pretty active, like I said, active in the sheriff's department. I'm going to continue there as long as they'll have me. I don't know how long that'll be. It's something to keep me busy. I can't go home and sit down. I know this, and I'm not about to. I'm going to try and be active in something. If I can't find something on my own, I'll start asking questions.
Is it a shock to you to finally realize that you're 65 and your work career is over?
Well, yes, in a sense, it is. You think about it. You think back over the years, and it don't seem possible that you're 65. We were out to the company took me out to dinner here about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and I talked to Will McLaughlin out there, and I told Will, I said, I just feel like I got about 10 more years in me yet anyhow. And he said, well, maybe you have, and I don't doubt it. But I feel good, and if I can keep my health and I'll find something to keep active. I know what happens if you don't.
Yeah. Did you think that all these years that you were adequately compensated or paid in retirement benefits and so forth?
Yes, I think so. I mean, what we can't expect, I don't think we can expect to amass something large just because we're retired.
Mm-hmm.
I might have a thought that there's people that's retired that shouldn't be retired.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like anything else. You got to have some date or some way of saying this is it.
Mm-hmm.
So what works for one isn't going to work for another one.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know, and person works. Well, I've worked ever since I was 16, and very few days that I've lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had to be pretty sick to not show up.
Yeah. Do you ever find that, or did you ever regret that you quit school when you did? Or did you ever find it a handicap?
Well, I suppose you could say that it's been a handicap at a point where probably in the last 20 years, maybe not that long, it's been more or less a known fact that if you got a high school diploma or a sheepskin from a college, your chances of employment are considerably more. Also, along that line, I think you will find too that even though we have got a lot of people that didn't graduate from high school even, that quit school, they may have been handicapped due to the lack of education or due to the lack of this going on to school. But the education they got was probably as valuable as someone that got through high school or college. Sometimes that's the way I feel about it, because everything that I have learned, my education after I left school has stuck, and I think I don't think I could have got the education in school. I could have got the basics, which I think that's all school is. It's basics.
Yeah.
But you got to use some good common sense
To go with it. Did you always have good health?
Yes. Yes, I have. Well, except like I telling you about the 4 years I was on the farm there. Before that, when my health got a little bit on the weak side, that was due to the fact of the job I was on. They told me at the time that I was working there that the life of a pressman was 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I spent 7 years. It's a little better than 7 years on one of those things, and I figured it done pretty doggone good.
Yeah, very good. I would say very good, because you look like you're in good physical shape. And
I feel good. I feel good, and well, I've had sinus and like that. I catch a little cold now and then. I've been fighting a little cold just recently, but it's a bug that goes around. You pick them up.
Is your family looking forward to you retiring?
I believe they are. They seem to be. The wife, I don't know if she's going to have the biggest job. Because I'm going to be on her feet. She's not used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a bigger job for her, my retirement, than it is me.
Hey, tomorrow's your last day of work.
Tomorrow's my last day.
Yeah, I think that's just great that you're in good physical shape, and everything. Do you ever think that they turn people out too early sometimes?
Yes, I do.
I mean, a lot of people say that I've seen guys 50 that should have been retired, and I've seen guys 90 that could still do a good day's work.
This is true.
Yeah.
I think it's true. I recall, I don't know whether I read this or it was on television. Some fellow that, I believe it was, I read this in the Reader's Digest, where this man was called back in because his replacement had lost things up so bad that they couldn't get no place, and they called him back in to see if he could straighten it out, and they put him back to work.
Yeah.
And he wasn't retired until he was 70, I believe, if I recall right. So, like I said, for one, yes, it might work. For the next one, it's the best thing that maybe he is retired at 60 or 65 or whatever.
Yeah. You talked about your grandparents being extremely close to their religious beliefs. Did you formally stay a member of a church and active in a church all your life?
Up until about...
This is a personal question now. A man's religion is his own personal thing, but just to get the...
It is, but I'm not ashamed of it, and except for the fact that the past couple of years, I haven't been active.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was. I went to St. Matthew's Church when we lived in Wabash and was confirmed there.
Mm-hmm.
I recall several of the ministers at Houseman. Can't speak his name now. I just seen his wife's name in the church paper that we get once in a while. They were wonderful people, all of them. All the ministers we had there. And when we moved from Huntington, I wasn't too active when we lived in Huntington because I didn't get acquainted well enough with the church people up there. And we moved back there to the farm. We started going to the church, the same denomination as St. Matthew's there, at St. Paul's Church on the county line. And I became very active. I was on the consistory. I taught junior class. I taught junior class, I think, about 7 or 8 years. Even after we moved over to Lincolnville, I drove every Sunday morning over there after I'd worked till 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And we built our home then in Urbana after, in 53. And I drove from there out to the county line church for quite a while, simply because I was very much attached to the people, the young people in particular. And the minister, the last two ministers they had before we moved our letter to Urbana were very nice people. I mean, they were just good, down-to-earth people that you had to like, and there was just no question about it. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we drove from Urbana out there, when the church at Urbana was within 2 squares of us, was due to the fact that we had a lot of friends, made a lot of friends out there, and like I said, I was interested in the people, and I hated to leave the whole group as long as that minister was there. And came that he was going to leave, and he went into the service as an Army chaplain. Mm-hmm. I told my wife, as soon as we found it out, I told her, I said, this would be a good opportunity for us to break our ties with this church and move to Urbana, move our letter to Urbana. I said, I'm going to miss the kids out here, sure, but we got to do it sometime, and we might as well do it now since he's leaving. And that way they won't have, we'll have it all done. So that's what we done. I had several reports afterwards that some of some of the kids that was in the class quit going to Sunday school. This, I kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, it's flattering anyway.
It is. And I think the second Sunday we went to church at Urbana, they approached me to teach the junior class down there, and I did. I taught them, I don't know how many years. I never had a substitute. I was there every Sunday, and my wife became, she had, she got sick, her nerves bothered her, and she had pneumonia, and she couldn't go, and I'd get up and go to Sunday school and church, sang in a choir, both places, and I'd go, and even though she couldn't go. And the sad part of the whole story is I didn't need a substitute because I was there every Sunday. And somebody got the idea that I needed a substitute, so they, unbeknownst to me, they appointed somebody a substitute. And we had our church service before Sunday school. I went over to the parish hall, took the choir robe off in the choir room, hung it up, went over to my class, and my substitute was there, and I didn't have a chance to say anything. He said, "I'm your substitute, and I've got the lesson prepared for this morning, and you can teach next Sunday morning." And I said, "Fine and dandy." I sat down and I listened to the Sunday school lesson. Sunday school was over with. I got up and walked out, and I haven't been back.
I'll be darned.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, these are things that happen, I think.
But this is something
Yeah, it's personal, and
that hurt me.
yeah, sure.
I mean, unbeknownst to you, something like this happens, and it hurt me, and really, I don't think I've got over it yet.
Yeah. It still bugs you, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
Yeah. How many grandchildren do you have?
7.
7 grandchildren?
7 grandchildren. The oldest one's married, got married last August, and they live close by. They're only a half mile from their parents, and they're on our telephone line, and they call us. And my oldest granddaughter is a senior this year at Northfield High School. She's just made the Honor Society. I'm so proud.
You should be.
And let's see, I've got one. Let's see, the youngest one I believe is in the first. Yeah, she's in first grade. And this is my son's daughter. And then his other daughter is third grade, I believe. And then I got my daughter's daughter youngest daughter is 6th grade or 5th grade. I can't keep track of them. And the son, his boy, is in 5th grade here in town. And I've got my daughter's youngest son is 7th grader at Northfield. So I have 4 granddaughters and 3 grandsons.
You enjoy the grandchildren, you and your wife?
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. See them quite often, and they're all close.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
And they like to come and see Grandpa and Grandma.
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you've had a rather interesting and a rather satisfying life, and I think that's important as a man retires, that he can look back on the many satisfactions and accomplishments that a person has had, and that he retains his health and the love of his family. I think that's extremely important. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we close her off? Because maybe 50 years from now, your grandchildren will be listening to that and say, "Gee, that's Grandpa."
Well, it's been a wonderful experience. All of it. And I don't know. I don't know of anything that I'm really sorry for. Uh, I've had a lot of pleasant experiences. Of course, we all have our saddening experiences and so forth, but I think they're outweighed by pleasant memories and experiences. The people, I've been in contact while at Honeywell's has been one grand experience. I can't say enough about the people. I mean, you know, you're going to have some of the people that will say that there has been a change, and there has been. There's no question about it. There's been a change in all respects as far as society is concerned nowadays to what it was 15 years ago. People can see the changes. I've seen changes out here, and the type of people that come in. That the new hires are maybe haven't had the close ties. This probably goes back to when a family was a family. They got this old saying, a family that prays together stays together, and several other different sayings, and that means a whole lot. There's more truth to that than the person can realize. I have no regrets for anything except.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Elmer. And this interview was by George Dingledye.